In this video, we're going to show you how to set up and collect questionnaire data using the SurveyEngine software. We'll also show you how to include a simple choice experiment, which will be covered in more depth in a separate video. I'll assume you've already registered or logged in and you're looking at the dashboard screen. And everything we do today will be able to be achieved using the free version. This is the dashboard, which shows you all your current projects and their status. You can dive in and manage a project, which we'll do in a second. You can create a new project or import one you've saved offline, or even downloaded from the tutorials. You can also import and export entire surveys as Excel spreadsheets, which is useful if you want to create surveys offline from a product or medications database, rather than entering them manually. So what we're going to do now is create a blank survey, which you do with this button here at the top. Within each survey, there are three phases. The editing phase, where you're building a survey and getting the logic flow and layout right. Then there's the data collection phase, where you're largely monitoring responses as they're coming in. And then finally, there's the results phase, where you're running analyses and downloading the data. The first screen you see after you've created the survey is the page editor. And this is the screen you'll probably spend most of your time on. On this screen, you can create pages, place questions, text, image, logic, and choice scenarios within those pages. You start with 4 blank pages and you can always add more or delete them. For the purposes of this example, we'll imagine we're running a simple unlabeled experiment on route choice by car. We'll also collect some demographic data and other data to control for hypothetical bias. So we'll start by putting some introductory text on the first page, welcoming the respondent to the survey, giving them an indication of the subject matter and how long the survey will take. On the first page, we'll also add a consent question with some logic, branching them to a screen out page if they don't consent. All data collection items have data labels, as here. So for this question, we'll give it the name consent. Naming these data collection items allows you to manage them later on, to be able to see the names in the data that you export, but also to access them within the survey, which we're going to need to do to implement branching logic. You can always see all the variables you've used and named in the dictionary screen here. The language which is used for expressions in SurveyEngine is Perl, which is a very common language, and there's a lot of online resources for this. You can include entire Perl programs in SurveyEngine, but today we're just going to use it for a simple Boolean test, which is if consent is equal to 2, which is the categorical value of the second item. All survey elements have a conditional display. If you place something in here that is evaluated, that will control whether the element is active or not. In this case, we want to activate or enable the branching element only if consent is equal to no, which is this expression here. On the second page, we'll add a question about car ownership, which we may use in our models to segment later. And I'll place 4 pages with placeholders for where we'll put the experiment scenarios in a second. We'll add a final thank you page and a comments section at the end, which is always useful. Let's now preview to see that the logic's working. So first we'll run through consenting, and as we see, we get the scenarios or the placeholder scenarios. If we go back and select no for consent, you'll see that we branch to the screen out page, which is what we want. We'll make a note that we may change the header and title, and let's move on to the experiment. Experiments are defined in a separate area, then added just like question elements as scenarios. We're going to largely gloss over the details of running an experiment because we'll cover this in a separate video. But for now, we'll make a simple experiment with 2 alternatives, unlabeled, so it's option A and option B. We'll add 3 attributes, which are travel time, congestion, and toll costs. For travel time, 20 minutes, 40 minutes an hour. Congestion, none, infrequent and frequent. And toll, none, $2, $5, and $10. Next, we'll generate an experimental design. For this example, we're just going to go with this simple orthogonal design. Click this button and an orthogonal design is generated and automatically imported within the experiment. And that's all we need to do for the moment. So we're going to go back to the survey builder and just swap out our placeholders for experiment scenarios. By default, these will be randomly allocated with replacement. Usually what you do is use blocking, but we're not going to bother with that today. That's for a separate video. Finally, I'll add some text and data to help control for hypothetical bias. Borrowing from Michelle's video, we'll put some incentive compatibility up the front as text. Results of this study will be used to develop roads and tolls in your city. It's important that you make choices as you would make in a realistic setting. And we'll also add a question at the end. How certain were you of your choices? Very certain, certain, uncertain, very uncertain, and don't know. We'll briefly go into the layout section, change the header and title, and put a logo. Preview it. And it all looks good. Now, there are many more things that could be done here. We may also put some sort of stratification scheme in, but for now, we perhaps decide this is workable for an initial pilot, and we want to begin collecting data. We now move to the deployment screens. The first screen is the publish screen, and this is the gateway to getting your survey live. When you publish, a copy is made of your current working edits, and this is put live with a version starting at 1. Versioning is important for management later on. If you, for example, make small changes to your survey during data collection but want the data to be merged, but still be able to identify responses by the version, this is what we use. Or perhaps you're running a series of tests and you're finally ready to go live. You want to clear the data out and start fresh. You would publish, because every publish is a new version. And the version history is available here. All your published versions are here, and you can decide at any point to include or exclude data by version. Clicking publish now makes this version live. Next, we have the activity screen, and on this screen you can see the summary of completion statistics for the survey. So far, as nobody has started the survey, it's obvious all the activity and completion stats are 0. But as respondents come in, you'll be able to see how many people are live, screened out, and the total completes. If you have a more complex stratification scheme with quotas, you'll be able to see those totals there. At the bottom here, we have some read-only links that will help third parties manage your data collection. But to get your survey live, you'll need an invitation link. An invitation link could then be used either as a post on your website, in an email campaign, or provided to a panel. And you can create multiple links, which is useful if you want to track and manage different sources, and also route them to different places at the end of your survey, which is critical for panels who do need you to send completed respondents to a specific web address. For now, we'll just take one of these links and become the first respondent. Imagine we've just received this link in an email. Following this link takes you straight to the survey, which of course we already know, so we'll just close the window down. If we go back to the activity screen, you can see a single solitary start, which is us, but of course we didn't complete. But waiting for respondents to come into your survey is a potential liability if there are as yet undiscovered problems with the survey. So a way to mitigate this is to run simulations. This is the simulation screen, which is extremely useful for testing your whole survey before you go to field. What this screen lets you do is to generate bot respondents to your survey. We'll set off 50 bots on our survey. These bots run through your survey just as a respondent will. They scan each page, looking for the active buttons and field, which they then click and enter. From a data collection perspective, this is identical to real respondents. The only difference is that their IP addresses are all the same, and of course they give random answers. But in all other ways, they will actually be interacting with the survey just as a respondent would. So if there are, for example, any logic errors you haven't anticipated, or even technical errors that you've introduced by putting in custom JavaScript code, these bots will experience them just as a real respondent would. They will also generate data so you can see what the data will look like, which is really useful to find any holes and to even prepare your modeling scripts in advance. Looking back now at the activity screen, we can see we have a lot more respondents having completed the survey, and these are the bots. So now we've got respondents, we'll move to the results and data screens. Once you've collected your data, you want to look at it and download it, or perhaps even do some analysis. You can, of course, do this at any time during data collection. Downloading your data is a matter of going to the data screens and downloading it in the format you want: SPSS, CSV, or Excel. And the corresponding data dictionaries are included with these downloads. There's also a frequency and crosstab screen that lets you do a quick analysis without having to download the data. You can also do a more permanent version of these and take a snapshot of these analyses as reports and share them as HTML links. Finally, we have the model screen. This screen lets you generate a predefined MNL model for each choice experiment. While it's recommended to download the data and perform your own modeling, this screen does give you an early read on model convergence. As we can see here, we have a poor model because the respondents provided random responses. There are more advanced ways of building surveys and experiments which you can find on the site as tutorials and videos. However, I hope this has given you a broad overview of the mechanics of building a questionnaire with an experiment and how to collect data. Thank you for watching.